is my privilege to welcome all of you to this second session, which is a book reading and discussion on the Tatas, how a family built a business and a nation. The book is written by Girish Kuber. Let me just describe the session to you. The session is divided into two parts, and in the first part, we have a recorded video of a conversation with Girish Kuber. And in the second section, we have Dr. Hardik Vachharajani, who is here with me. Welcome, Dr. Hardik. It's a pleasure to have someone from the Symbiosis family to join us. And Dr. Hardik will be in the second section, in a conversation with Mr. Kishore Chaukar, the former managing director of Tata Industries. Before we play the video, a little brief about Mr. Girish Kuber and the book. Mr. Girish Kuber is the editor of Loksatta and writes frequently in the Indian Express. He is also the author of 6 books in Marathi. The book currently in discussion was originally written in Marathi as Tatayan and then translated into English. To describe the book to you, I have taken the liberty of borrowing words from the preface of the book written by Mr. Girish Kuber himself. And he writes, I quote, "The Tata conglomerate is intricately intertwined in so many of India's successes and firsts, and most of these, incredibly, have remained uncovered. Not many know that it was the Tatas who brought silk to Mysore, or that they were the ones who got strawberries to Mahabaleshwar. Not many are aware either that the world's earliest worker welfare policies were drafted in a Tata venture, or that the Tatas were global pioneers in conceiving a hydroelectric project. My effort here, the author says, is to tell the human side of this business story from the common man's point of view without resorting to jargon and mind-boggling numbers. Again, profits do matter, no doubt, but that's not the only factor. Against this backdrop, it is fascinating to delve into this story that starts with a common Indian middle-class man who aimed high and while achieving what he sets his sight on, thought of what he could do for the country and cared for the environment.
Namaste, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today for Symbiosis Literature Festival 2023. My name is Dr. Hardik Vachharajani. I'm the Professor of Management and Director for Quality Management and Benchmarking at Symbiosis International University here in Pune. Now, for this session, I have a great privilege that we are going to interact with Mr. Girish Kuber. Now, Mr. Girish Kuber, before I give his introduction, is the author of this book about which we are going to talk today. So, Girish ji is an author, editor, and journalist. And after reading this book, I would say also a historian and an academic, because he has ticked all the boxes in this particular book. And he's currently the chief editor for Loksatta Daily, which is part of the Indian Express Group and is one of the largest daily newspapers in the Marathi language. So the book which we are going to talk about today was originally written by Girish ji in Marathi with the title Tatayan, very similar to Ramayan. And it was eventually translated by Vikrant Pandey and published by HarperCollins as the book titled The Tatas, How a Family Built a Business and a Nation. So we have a great privilege that author of the book, Girish ji, is here with us. Girish ji, thank you very much for accepting our invitation and being here at the Symbiosis Literature Festival 2023.
Thanks for having me. It is always a pleasure.
Right. This book is a fascinating capture of 200 plus years of history of a family. You take us all the way from a little town called Navsari in Gujarat to Paris, and then we travel to East Asia and Hong Kong, and then we go to America to find out some manufacturers or suppliers for a steel plant. And we take this amazing journey of a family, its struggles, the challenges, how they overcome it, and how, throughout that journey, they contribute to the national development of India. So as an academic, my first question to you would be that to write such a extensive historical book, what research was involved, and what were your sources for this information, and how did you go about this whole journey?
So it was not like starting point, and I can't say one particular thing. It's ended. It was like ongoing process. Before becoming editor of Loksatta, I was with one of the leading business dailies of India. I was there as a political editor with that group, and as a part of duty, as someone who observes surroundings, I realized there is so much to write about the nation's wealth creators. As the thought came, obviously the first name was the Tatas. And there is another reason to it, a cultural reason to it. We as Indians, I always feel, that's my observation, you can say that's my kind of a argument also many times, we have, as a nation, have been consistently, continuously glorifying poverty. So Indians have this typical tendency of glorifying poverty in the sense like simple saying like Sadhi Rahani Uchcha Vichar Sarani. I mean, simple living and high thinking kind of a thing. Unfortunately, it's associated with poverty. I mean, simple living doesn't mean that you have to be really, really poor. And so I thought that's not the way Indians should be looking at themselves, And as I travel across a lot, and 26, 27 nations I used to attend as a part of business daily, international conferences and presentations and seminars at university. So at one such occasion, I remember a journalism student in Finland, here informally chatting. He just casually commented, I mean, we, as a Sweden neighboring nation, has Bofors or Volvo. In Finland, we have Nokia. So, as India, what you would like to tell us about? I mean, which particular brand or India's own creation you will tell us about? So, I thought here is the story waiting to be told. And not many are aware of that. It's not that this is the first book, but this is the first book in a sense. It starts with Nusirwanji Tata and comes up to the current incumbent head of the Tata Group. So there are books on Tata Steel, there are books on Tata Electric, TCS, but the complete story of family that was waiting to be told, and I started working on that. It was around say 6-7 years of process. And you ask about the resources. I was pleasantly surprised when Tata Archives made their books and the papers and documentation available to me. Tata Archives, it's based in Pune, where you are. So the entire material was available. And the high point of the book, and as a person, as an author, and as a someone who is watching the scenario around, was when Ratan Tata agreed to give interview for the book. We had 3 sittings. So kind of Mr. Tata, I remember one instance when he had to be, he had to delay the appointment, and his personal assistant called me and in a very apologetic tone saying that Mr. Tata will be late by 15 minutes. Will it be okay for you? I mean, that kind of courtesy, courteous behavior, gentlemanship, and despite being one of the largest or wealthiest family in the country, I thought this is the story to be told. And if there is one thing Indians, as Indians, should be proud of at global level, this is that brand, this is that creation which India must be proud at. Not many know that John D. Rockefeller, the father of global wealth creation or global entrepreneurship, and Jamshedji Tata, they are born in same year.
Oh, interesting.
So you can imagine it's the same year, 1835, and from there onwards, how the Rockefeller took on America, on what journey, and how much struggle Jamshedji Tata and the Tatas had to face or do in India. So in all aspect, I thought it's worth a story, and that's how it happened.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot. Very, very interesting. And well, as you said, that's how it all happens. So my next question is slightly slightly complex in terms of that India is known for several business houses, and for generations India has that whole entrepreneurship family business spirit. But based on the work which you have done and based on the book and the up close and personal, the Tata Group, what is so unique about Tatas that the legacy of entrepreneurship and social good runs generations after generations? And as you have very clearly pointed out in your book, quite often it is not even in the direct lineage, right? You talk about the succession crisis, and actually there are several succession crises throughout these these many years. So what is that interesting ingredient?
The most interesting part of the story was the Tata-ness, So what is Tata-ness? There are two aspects of this Tata-ness. First is, you talked about there are so many Indian entrepreneurs in the business for ages and centuries doing that. There are actually a handful of them, not many. Most of them come with a trading mentality. They're excellent traders, I mean, they can be excellent salespersons, but creating something of their own. There are not many who ventured out, this is that group. It started with that, I mean, there is no legacy. There is nothing Jamshedji Tata inherited from his father or forefathers, He was a simple cotton trader, and then from there onwards, it thought of setting up a textile mill, and then the journey began, So what is the Tata-ness? So the Tata-ness is growing. It's a mix of, it's a blend of personal growth along with the growth of the society. So every project, whatever they did, had to have some kind of a social story to it. Like it may be simple, like uploading software in Docomo phones, when Tata Docomo was there in the game. So the job or the responsibility was given to special kids. I mean, they realized those who are not exactly healthy, but they are good at some faculties so developed. So it's everywhere they have done that, I mean, you name the project, there has to be some kind of a social story about it. And I thought this is very interesting, because in India you have individual wealth creators or wealthy people who are least bothered about the society. And here is the group, part of it, or rather major part of it, is part of the societal growth, the society that makes the legacy more important. And that's why once you have this kind of a larger aim in your genes, small issues like family division and all those other industrialists face, you're not encountered with, This is the difference, and that's actually is what giant groups all over the world they follow. I mean, there may not be family person running the group in the next or the second or the third generation, but the group survives, even grows, and this is that similarity which we Indians as we need to understand, because we are very possessive about our own creation, It may be at family level, or it may be at industrial level, or it may be at political level. I mean, see, simple issues like son getting married and the division things, right from there onwards to having a legacy of so many employees, so many products. This is the beauty, and that actually attracted me.
Correct. Fantastic. Very interesting perspective. Now, I'm going to read one line which really hit me very hard as somebody who is keen on understanding in what we call in management literature as the geography of innovation, right? So there is a, there is a line on the page 12 of the book which says that you cannot keep a good businessman out of Mumbai for long. And throughout the book, we see that the whole Tata family, go out, they go to Japan, they go to America, they go to probably every corner of the world, and then come back to Bombay. And Bombay remains their anchored place. So now my question to you is that what is that special relationship between Tatas and Bombays? And I want to ask you that the second part of that question would be personal to you because you live in Bombay. What is in that city which still keeps it at the center of the trading, of the business, of the entrepreneurship of India?
It's very interesting, actually. There is something remarkable in this city, that doesn't poke its nose in your personal life. I remember one Bengali author, I forgot his name. He had written something like saying there are many extended villages in India, but city with its spirit is only Mumbai. So that Mumbai-ness, which allows you to grow. And one of the leading economists had said about Mumbai, I mean, person standing next to you might be even bigger than you. That's the beauty of Mumbai. There is nothing like you are arrived. And that Mumbai spirit that keeps the momentum going, that encourages you. That's what that actually must have been the case about the Tatas. And when he was what do you say, moving his base to Mumbai from Navsari, that was the time first college, what do you call it, the real English medium thing was happening in India for the first time. That was the time when Macaulay was thinking of English education in India. That was the time Lord Elphinstone talked about having his institution in India for the first time. And so all those things really work for someone who is aspiring to grow, someone who is looking beyond their villages and the states and the boundaries, And that must have been the reason, and that's how even today, having not many know actually that the Tata Group, 60% of the Tata Group's revenue comes from outside India.
Oh, interesting.
So that way, Tata Group is more international than Indian. But even then, their headquarters continues to be Mumbai. They could have easily chosen New York, London, or whatever, And I asked this question to Ratan Tata. I mean, don't you think, had you been in US, you would have achieved much more and many times, and with much ease? His answer was very classic, typical of Tata's, he said, yeah, I mean, what you say is right. But there are many doing others. There are not many in India. So I thought we should be here. And he also educated in US, having lived in US, came back to India, stayed in Mumbai for long in small apartment in Mumbai, So there is so much to the city and so much to Tata. There is very interesting connection actually.
Yeah.
And maybe the Parsi connection, that's something, it's very Navsari and Mumbai. There is the cord between implicated cord between the two cities, for Parsis. That also must have played an important role.
That's true. That could be the case because Navsari and Bombay are actually, if you go out of Navsari, probably Bombay would be the biggest city in those days where you could go, right? So yeah, interesting, because we talk a lot about the Silicon Valley and why Google and Microsoft and Facebook and all, they are all based in that little little valley, but we quite often don't really think about Bombay as that little, as we all know, it's not a very big city from its core, and there is just so many entrepreneurs and businesses who thrive there. Okay, so now my next question is going to be on the translation, because we live in a pretty privileged times. We the best of the books, we can get best of the good books anywhere in the world. and they get translated within few months, whether it is Yuval Harari or Sudhamurthy's translations in probably every language of India. So we are privileged in such that we get a lot of word reading getting translated in our indigenous languages. Now you are somebody who is at a at an amazing position that you've written this book in Marathi, you have seen it getting translated in English. You are absolutely as competent in English as you are in Marathi. So as a reader of a translated book, what things should a reader be careful of, or is there something which a reader should be careful of?
No, I think even if the reader is careful, he will not be able to decide unless he is able to read both languages. I mean, in both languages. But for me, what translation means is that it's just not the verbatim conversion of the details from this language to that language. The essence, and the regional languages are extremely good in storytelling. There is an expanse, there is a space, there is a ability to engage the reader. English at times become kind of a impersonal, take it or leave it kind of a thing, and actually the reason which I not earlier shared, I would have thought of writing this in English,
Exactly.
but the issue was I was working with a national business daily, and it was not exactly welcome to write on an industrial house. So it would have been seen politically incorrect, so to stay under the radar, I thought Marathi, my mother tongue, is a better option. Number two is there is huge requirement, I mean, kind of response the book generated. It must have had at least 19 or 20 reprints since last 6-7 years, there is a craving, and unfortunately the new India caters only to the 3.5% or 4% of the population which speaks and reads English. So in a way it's necessary to have understanding of both. But translation, I don't know how, but fortunately for this book, I mean, the translation comes with its own essence. So that's why in Marathi we don't call bhashantar. Bhashantar is a literal word for translation. So in the classically it should be rupantar.
Yes.
So
And there is
translation.
also a word called bhavanuvad.
Yes, correct. Wow, that's a beautiful word. That's what it should be. It should come with all the feelings and vows, along with that, and that it makes more interesting. And the compliment for the translation was it came from Wall Street Journal. The review. I mean, it was out of the blue. Suddenly, a friend of me from US messaged me saying, "Oh, your book has been reviewed by WSA." It's not nowhere in my thought that WSA could review my book, and that the quote which we have published in the book you are having, it carries the exact quote from the review. It says that the story is engaging, and author has been able to take readers along with that. So I think the translation must have really liked, and it's really liked. I mean, it's no doubt about it. And I feel the third point, there is too much of fuss about language made in India, and parents and teachers, and I mean everybody associates pride or prestige or their status to speaking or learning in English. But trust me, language is secondary. I worked in 4 places in the world, and in this thing also. What matters is what you have to tell, what content you have. I mean, Pather Panchali was not made in English or any of that matter, I mean, no Nobel laureate has, I mean, he's any of the creation unless he's original Englishman. I mean, still there, I mean, no one has done one for the translation part of it, So the point I'm trying to make it, you should have content. Language comes with its own thing, and that's the beauty of India, having so many languages around. And unfortunately, there is not much importance given to the what do you call languages, literature in languages, writing in languages, and that's a sad part. But Tata was the lucky one, which actually got the eyeballs, and it was picked up for translation.
Right. No, you are absolutely right, because we and it's quite interesting what you said. We do get a lot of international books in our languages, but when it comes to Indian languages, I think that is where there is very probably, because we need a third language. We'll have to probably, if somebody has written in Tamil, we'll probably have to get it translated into Hindi or English to get it translated into Marathi or Gujarati.
Yeah,
that could be the reason. But it's very fascinating to probably see a fantastic translation. I'm sure that a lot of credit goes to Vikrant Pandey, who has done a fantastic job, because when you read this particular book, you really don't feel that it is not written in English.
yeah.
Right? It just reads as if, and I'm sure your contribution would be there, copy editing and so on.
But mostly credit goes to because he's done a fabulous job.
Yeah, right. Okay, so now last question before we sum up. What is currently on your desktop?
You mean writing?
Yes.
Yeah, currently I'm working on a project. It's basically again long span, some 2,000 to 1,500 years history, and looking at China from various angles. My another book out last year. It was on biological warfare. It is again by HarperCollins. So something. Soon I'm hoping to have it early 2024. It's nice to keep self busy and engaged, and it makes us read with a kind of a focus. So that's the pleasure of working on books.
That's true. But as an editor of a daily, where news cycles change on a day-to-day basis, and an author who looks at 200 years, 2000 years, what kind of mental shifts you have to make? Because your newspaper comes daily,
Yeah.
the news items there kind of what you call change daily, or whatever word you want to use there. And then you write these long historical passages in whatever 200, 300 pages. What kind of mental shift do you have to do, and how do you do that?
Actually, it's kind of a pressure ball for me. I write only on Sundays, and I have a fixed target that this particular Sunday I will be having some 3,000 words I need to complete. So the week preceding that, I read about it. I start thinking about it. It's in my head, and it's a good way of. I always feel. Whatever pressure you are in, the change is the only way, and change doesn't mean good sleep or going out or holidaying. Change is change in work also. So every day I write edits, which are around 800 words, look at news and all that. And Saturday, Sunday, especially Sunday, I look at something nothing to do with today and tomorrow, which has a historical background, or which looks at the future. And that gives a kind of a satisfaction, and along with it's a pressure release mechanism, so to say. And actually, the real part is the pleasure. Not many know. After reading this book, the kind of reaction I get that, oh, we didn't know the strawberries in Mahabaleshwar are basically brought by Tatas, or Mysore silk is again thanks to Tatas. We didn't know. So these kind of things, they keep you going, and books always have a long shelf life. Newspaper is matter of a day or week, So long shelf life, it's something it's worth trying for.
Absolutely. Well, what a great thought to probably finish this interaction, that books have a long shelf life, and we should all strive to have literature which is of longer shelf life. Girish Kuber, author of The Tatas, How a Family Built a Business and a Nation. Thank you again so very much for accepting our invitation to be part of Symbiosis Literature Festival 2023. And we all look forward to reading your future future book, and again listening to you in person at Symbiosis. We
I
were
wish I could have been there. That's something my apologies for that, not being able to make it. But yeah, I mean the work pressure and the engagements. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thanks again. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hardik, for doing that recorded session. Now, our lovely audience, let me take you to the next section of this session, which is a live conversation between Dr. Hardik Vachharajani and Mr. Kishore Chaukar. Let me introduce Dr. Hardik to you. He is currently a professor of management and director for quality management and benchmarking function at the Symbiosis International University. Dr. Hardik's decades of experience include teaching, research, and consulting interest in strategy, entrepreneurship, and innovation. He has consulted around 50 startups and small and medium enterprises in manufacturing, services, and trading industries. He has trained around 200 entrepreneurs, owner managers, and corporate managers on strategy, quality, innovation, organizational development, and management excellence. He is Six Sigma Green Belt and a certified BPO quality analyst. He will now engage in a conversation with Mr. Kishore Chaukar, former managing director, Tata Industries. Without much delay, Dr. Hardik, I hand over the session to you.
Thank you very much, Afshan. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks a lot for being part of this session. So I'm privileged to have Kishore Chaukar with us as in the second part. So Kishorji was a member of the board of directors of Tata Communications Limited, and Kishorji retired in August 2012 from being the managing director of Tata Industries Limited. Now it gets very fascinating. So Tata Industries Limited, or the TIL, acts as a new project promotion arm of the group, and it spearheads the entry of the group into emerging high-tech and sunshine sectors of the economy. So Kishorji is probably exactly the right person whom we want to ask few questions on the diversity of Tata businesses and longevity and things around that. Now, Kishorji, while at TIL, was also a member of the Group Corporate Center, which is engaged in strategy formation at the House of Tatas. Now, Kishorji chaired for several years the Tata Council for Community Initiative, the social aspect, which we have been talking since the beginning of the session, and I'm going to put a question to Kishorji on that also, and was a member of board and advisory board of several national and international organizations in corporate sustainability and human rights space. Kishorji was a member of boards of several Tata companies and the chairman of Tata Teleservices Maharashtra Limited and Tata Business Support Services. Before joining Tata Group, Kishorji was with ICICI Group. Kishorji holds a BA degree in economics from Karnataka University and postgraduate diploma in management from Indian Institute of Management in Ahmedabad. Kishorji, thank you so very much for your time this Sunday morning, and we are very excited to have you here.
Thank you, Dr. Vachharajani. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with all of you, albeit on the online.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks a lot, sir. Now, let me start by asking you this question. You know, every day we talk to young entrepreneurs and startup entrepreneurs, and you know, a lot of them have, you know, want to start up a company and then sell the company in 5 to 10 years to some big organization, and they start with that aspiration. Now, in this environment, my question to you would be that what has led to the lasting success of Tata Group? So, you know, what factors do you believe contribute to the longitudinal success of this enterprise?
If you look at the business textbooks, majority of them, they will tell you a lot of things about clarity of understanding between owner and manager, role of them. We'll talk about vision, we'll talk about courage, competence, commitment, etc., etc., etc. In the house of Tata, what I believe, and I believe majority of my colleagues would agree with it, are the two underlying principles which have contributed significantly to the longevity. The first one is the community interest. You must have heard about Jamshedji Tata's quotation, which goes something like this: in a free enterprise, community is not just one more stakeholder in business, but in fact, it is the very purpose of it. There is a committed understanding and acceptance of this principle across the group in the house of Tata. And the second one, which again, in the interest of the community, in the interest of the nation. And community, I'm not speaking in a very narrow way. I'm not talking in a parochial style. Community could be a small group, a community could be a large place, community could be a nation. And community overall, totally at large, would be the humanity itself. The community of which you are a part. If you operate your business or undertake an economic activity which does not go counter to the interests of that community in any aspect, be it income, quality of life, be it environment or whatever, you are bound to be a long-lasting company. One of the parts of that would, of course, be ethical practices in business. You have to earn trust before you earn money. And if you do that, over a period of time, people will continue doing business with you. You look at yourself, you look at the people around you. We may buy many other companies' shares, but not necessarily their products. And you can see many of them like that. You might buy several of companies' products, but you may not buy their company share. There are very few companies like Group Tata where you are willing to buy their product. You're also willing to buy their shares. You're also willing to take a job there and have your daughter or son married to someone who works at Tata's. That is the trust and the acceptance which comes out of community interest and which comes about ethical values that the company follows. And I believe, and many of us, my colleagues in Tata's also believe, that these are the two driving principles which have contributed significantly to the longevity of the group.
Right, right. Fascinating. Now, this is a sort of a follow-up question on that. Well, it's great. This book also highlights a lot about the social aspect, and we all experience it, we all see it. But ultimately, every Tata enterprise is a business like any other business. So how does Tata's truly balance these social responsibilities versus financial realities?
It's very simple. Most people consider community interest and contribution to community. When we speak in terms of social responsibility and contribution to the community and the values, we do not consider it as a cost to the company, but we see it as an investment in the business itself. Once you change this mindset of considering expenditure on social responsibility as an investment and not a cost, a lot of things fall in place. And the evidence of that we have experienced when there was a threat of what shall I say, nationalization of Tata Steel about 50 years ago. It is the people around Jamshedpur who kind of sent a subtle message to the powers that be that please, you can do whatever you want, but do not nationalize Tata Steel. Same thing happened when there were labor problems at Titan. It is the parents of the workers who came to Tata management and said, continue, sir, your business. Our children are quite happy. If they have made a mistake, please forgive them. And she did. How do we incorporate that in our system? Again, there is a process. We have a process called the Tata Business Excellence Model. And we have a system called the JRDQV, that is the JRD quality value. In this particular process, contribution by the chief executive and his management team and the company to the societal advantage is a significant part in assessment of the company in terms of how well it has done and within the group, and how well it has done vis-a-vis its competition, and also the appraisal of the chief executive as well as the management staff. And this helps. And it is not 1% or 2%. It's a fairly significant part of the assessment process, along with profitability, along with balance sheet, along with reputation, along with quality of the product, and along with the size of the business vis-a-vis the other businesses in that area. And once we incorporate that, as you are supposed to improve productivity of your production process, you are supposed to give advantage to the customer, you are also expected to contribute to this community welfare, and that is a significant part of the business that you are engaged in, and that is to be considered as an investment for the future, and it is not just a cost. Things will fall in place. Of course, when you make an investment, you know that since I was in ICICI merchant banking, and we used to deal in stock market quite often, there the fair and a reasonable time was considered to be about 15 or 20 seconds,
right,
for an investment. Yeah, those of you who are operating stock market, you will know that. About 15, 20 seconds, 1 or 2 minutes is just about fine. A good enough fair time. In case of investment in social responsibility dimension, that is, say, community improvement, this particular investment span for maturity and returns may take a little longer time. If you have the patience, and if you are interested in longevity of business, there is nothing like investing in social responsibility area.
right, right. Fantastic. Now, when we look at the diversity of the businesses in Tata Group, we are all very proud of, how on one hand you got Jaguar Land Rover, and on the other hand you got Tata Nano, and you got Tata Steel and telecommunications and so on. But at the same time, in strategic management, we talk a lot about having a core business model. So now my next question to you would be that what is Tata's core business?
Our core business is business. It is the core business of Tata Steel to be in steel. It is the core business of Tata Motors to be in vehicles. It is the core business of Tata Chemicals to be in chemicals, to be in watches, and in Tanishq is in jewelry. Each of our companies has their own core businesses, and they operate. As a group Tata, our core business is to be in business, to be an entrepreneur, to be an industrialist. And therefore, you will find over the last 100 odd years, we have entered several new businesses. We have exited several old businesses, which became irrelevant because of technology, because of rules, regulations, because of the needs of the changing needs of the society. So once you think not as one single business, but business of businesses, things fall in place, and there is no problem at all. And exits are quite a few. We exited textiles. Those of you who remember must have heard about the Tata Textiles. You will be surprised that we were also in silk. We grew silkworms. We converted into silk yarn. We made into neckties and stuff like that. And we exported some of them and sold. Also in growing of roses and exporting of roses. We got out of all of that. 35 years ago, we were also manufacturing phone sets, the fixed line sets. We got out of that. So the time, as they change, as the environment in which you are working changes, some businesses become more relevant, more profitable, less relevant, less useful to the society. Get out of them. and look at the new options. And once you have that mindset, you don't have trouble at all in building a business. Group conglomerate operating one business as it is relevant.
Right, right.
Independent companies, they have their own core business, sometimes two, maybe.
Thanks a lot. That's very interesting perspective. Now, my next question to you is, is slightly on the governance side. When we think about family businesses, we think of governance usually in the red, right? And the research have again and again proved that that governance in the family managed business is always a challenge. While Tatas in India have largely stood as a notable exception into that. Now, I want to know, as a person from management, is that what structures make this possible? Because when we really look at the book talks about several people joining the business, moving on, uh, several leadership changes from the family side. What makes the governance work so that governance does not go into the red?
Couple of things, but the most important part is it is led from the top of Tata Sons, chairman, managing director, top from the chief of different Tata Group companies. And they lead by example rather than by talk. That is one part. The second part is we have a processes in place, a fairly well defined, well written down code of conduct, and fairly fairly strong process of making sure that the code of conduct is followed. Not that we haven't had our lemons, and our lemons have also been pretty sour. They haven't been sweet at all. But whenever such a lemon was found, the group Tata took extremely strong corrective actions. Many of you may have read about those in the past. So the governance matter is led from the top and it is done by action. We have processes in place through code of conduct and the Tata business excellence model, which I talked about. And there is a uh, continual sharing of best practices within the group companies, which helps because one learns from the good practices of the others. So also contributed significantly, which probably is very unique to Tata, is that there is a very clear understanding as to the role of the owners and the road managers. There is no very seldom you will find that kind of a conflict of interest. Of a manager is a manager, and therefore you'll find that majority of the why majority, probably 90% of the Tata Group companies, the family from Tata is two, three, four, five Tata family managing director who had an executive role. The other people were officers within the organization, uh, sometimes at senior place, but sometimes at the middle level also. And none of them intervened with other businesses. I never had a call or a demand or anything else from anyone other than my boss, and that was Mr. Ratan Tata. Now, if any family is capable of managing this clear difference between who is the owner and who is the manager and what is the authority that needs to be given to the manager and empower him completely without any interference or intervention, you got no problems of what shall I say, governance, and of course leading from the top. Absolutely no substitute for leading from the top. If the top man is honest, if the top man is clear about his set of values, it slowly percolates down the organization. The recruitment follows that process. The training follows that process. The placement follows that process and the ethics.
Right, right. Fantastic. And that exactly probably is the reason why we love to have Tata shares. We also like to work in Tata, and we would like to even buy Tata products, and probably get married to somebody who is working in Tatas. Because
Delightful. But please check with your wife if you have already been married.
I'm married, but probably this is an advice for somebody else. All right. Now I'll come to the
Eh,
final. I'll come.
Anyway, anyway, I'm glad that feeling of still very much there and
Yeah.
is growing.
Yeah. I'll now come to the final question, and then we'll open up for student questions. We've got a few students who have got questions for you. But before that, as somebody who is a quality person, and you talked about the best practice sharing, I really want to understand if you can very quickly share with us the platform of best practice sharing, because best practices in IT and best practices in steel and automobile, how do they converge, and how do different enterprises benefit from it? I would really appreciate if you can probably throw some light on that.
See, basically, the customer has got a similar mindset. He is looking for something. Sharing or finding out what does your customer look at, what does your customer look at, what does your customer look at, it gives you an idea. Any marketing manager gives the marketing manager an idea. Let's say Tata Motors marketing manager, if he gets to know why does a customer buy Tanishq, why does a customer buy Tata Chemicals product like salt, why does a customer buy TCS services, why does a customer buy Tata Steel, you get to know the differential mindsets of the customer, and all of them are clearly value addition for himself. It helps you open up your mind considerably, and this happens not only in case of just uh, say marketing, it also happens in case of supplies. You look into the motivational factor that leads on differential behavior of customers, different behavior of suppliers, different behavior of employees. But essentially, it is value addition. Look for where the value addition is coming through. And best services sharing in a very concise and a precise manner and in a very short time gives you that ability to assess that. And that is why I think that's a very significant part of continuing the Tata ethos.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Kishore. Now, should we open up, Afshan, for questions from students?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, sounds good.
Yeah.
So I invite students who have questions to please raise their hands.
I saw a hand raise from Karman Kaur Gandhi.
Right. As I was saying, we have Karman's question, with us. So, the question that Karman Kaur Gandhi wants to ask is, what key milestones and strategies played a pivotal role in the Tata family's journey of building a business empire and influencing the nation's economic landscape?
Several of them, what couple of them I already mentioned. One is the dimension of community interests and therefore nation's interests. And the second one is of establishing a very strong code of ethics while doing business. Now, what added to that, and in terms of milestones, the vision and the adaptability. Think of about 125 years ago, circa 1900 or thereabouts. A hotel like Taj Mahal came up in Bombay. A steel plant was on the cards, and an electricity production unit was being built when there was no demand for rooms of the kind Taj offered, there was no demand for electricity, and there was no demand for steel. Against massive opposition, not only by the suppliers of the raw material, but also suppliers of technology. You may have heard about that. One of the Britishers said that steel in India, out of question. I will eat every ton of steel that is going to be produced by Tatas. And there was a very fine comment by one of the former executives or directors of Tatas. He says that gentleman must have had quite of a indigestion. And after that, you go and see, if those of you who have traveled to Sydney, you will go and see. It's a matter of pride for all of us who worked at Tatas that at the Sydney Bridge, below it is written down there, steel from Tata Steel India. So it's a question of that vision. That someone looked into the future way ahead, 20, 30, 40 years ahead, and saw what is going to be useful for the community and for the nation. He had the courage, not just the competence, but he had the courage and the commitment to go through it completely. And I think that's probably the first milestone, which is a driving inspiration for almost everybody in Tatas. Then fighting it out in course of time, you may have heard about it also, that the family of Tata mortgaged their personal jewels in order to finance company when it was in difficulties during the between the war years. Another milestone which was very significant, which doesn't get very much noticed, is that over a period of time, each company started operating more or less as independent satraps and independent companies. There was a great effort to bring all of them down under one single Tata brand, one single Tata logo. 20, 25 years ago, many of these companies had different logos. Today they don't. So they are under one group. So that's another significant milestone. The other milestones which began earlier was when we started getting out of companies, getting out of businesses because they were not relevant, getting into new businesses like Air India, and not just at the time of starting it for the first time, but re-entering it. These are also milestones. In a way, they encourage the group and the group participants. Look at the past, learn from it, and say, hey, if it worked at that time, why not this time? Don't get overly attached to one single business. Get out if you need to. And if you feel like getting back into it again, do that. And the milestones, if you ask every year, probably there'll be one. Now we are in aerospace. It took 20 years for us to get that aerospace business going. But now it's doing pretty well. It's a business of the future. It took quite some time for Mr. Kohli to get TCS online. But once it started going, well, you know where TCS is today. So there is courage, there is patience, there is what you call a vision, and that's what matters. And these were the milestones. You can take any event of these. You want to do it in social service? Yeah, we can take out different milestones. You want to look at it from the time of getting into new businesses? Sure, we can do that. A multiplicity of them. 2-3 minutes will not be good enough to discuss all of them, but I've given you a gist of those milestones.
Absolutely, sir. And anyone who is interested in milestones, I highly recommend you read this book, because this book is all about those milestones.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, Afshan, go on. Sorry.
Thank you, Dr. Hardik. I quite agree. The next question we have, Krishnaveni. Please unmute yourself and ask the question.
Yes, a very good afternoon to you, sir.
Doctor.
So my question to you is, how did the Tatas differentiate themselves in their approach to business and family governance?
I think we have gone over it a couple of times. So one is the community service, and the second one is very clearly the matter of ethical behavior of business. And they are the one probably the most significant ones that I can come across.
Right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Krishnaveni. Thank you, sir. We have, I think, time for one more question. So Ania Kulkarni has raised her hand. So Ania, please go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, hello, sir. It has been an honor to hear from you today morning. My question was that how did your perception of the institute and the family of Tatas change from where you are now as a retired managing director to from where you were when you were a young professional who aspired to get into Tata and work under here? So how has your perception of this company and the family and the institution changed?
You know, it's very funny that you ask this question, because this has sometimes plagued me also in terms of why did I? I mean, I was with ICICI. Before that, I was in rural development. And then It's fascination about the company and the company's principles as a group, that you are becoming relevant to the society in which you are prospering. And if you look at that first quotation which I gave you, Jamshedji Tata, regarding in a free enterprise, community is the very existence of your business. There is another one, that what comes from the society goes back to the society in a multiple fold. And that again is a driving force which said that I think there is something which is nice and good about it. The ethical values are a great sustainer for the people within the organization. You sleep well, you feel nice. I think Mr. Girish Kuber also mentioned about the gracefulness of the house that treat their executives, the way they treat their people, the way they're not kind-hearted souls gift awards, but they are humane people who look into, do you have any problems as a staff member and can we help you? And I think that's a very fascinating way of being associated with the company. You become a part of the group. You know, I have retired. It's almost 12 years now that I have retired from paid job from Tatas. I can't get Tata out of my system, out of my DNA.
Yes,
I may
yes.
have left Tatas as an employer, but it's still there. And you know why it happened? On the last day of my work in Tatas, I sought an appointment with Mr. Ratan Tata, who was my boss. And I went and met him, and he said, "Yes, Kishore, what is it that you want?" I said, "Sir, today is my last day with the group Tata, and I'm leaving." You know what he said? He just did. I'm sitting in his office, and he tells me, "Kishore, I don't think you are leaving the group Tata." And which is become a part, because there is a pleasure to be in that.
And there is very a lot of testament from different people about this. I read Sudha Murthy's story about how when she had worked under GRD Tata, his parting words to her also were that always give back to the community. So you can see how every person of the Tata group prioritizes community and thinks of them in
You're
a
right.
positive.
You're right. And those who don't are not in sync with that generally find options that suit their thought processes
Yes.
outside
Thank
Tata.
yes. Thank you so much, sir.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Anya. Thank you so much, sir, for
Thank you.
this insightful conversation. I thank Mr. Kishore Chaukar and I thank Dr. Hardik Vachharajani for taking us through this very wonderful, insightful journey. As a history student and a history teacher, there's a lot to learn from there.